Hello, everybody, and welcome to Professor P's podcast. I'm Natasha Palumbo, aka Professor P. I'm known for evoking the essence of spirituality by bringing the energetic fire, activating the mind, and speaking the truth. I'm so honored that you are here with us today. I thank you for joining. This podcast is focused on entrepreneurship, empowerment, and energetics. You're going to find a wealth of information inside, guest speakers, and the elixir, a dose of energetic power. So let us join in on today's podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Professor P's podcast. I'm so excited for you all to join me again today. How are you doing out there? Are you doing good? You got to tell me. You got to make sure that you tell me how you're doing because you know I love to hear from you. I have to give you all your love and your kudos. Thank you so much for your likes, your subscription, all the comments and feedback on the podcast. I really treasure how much you're getting out of each and every episode. So thank you so much. I'm getting ready to wrap up the semester now, and I'm coming with my guest speaker, and I cannot be more excited. I mean, how much more excitement could come out of this body of mine? So much more. Okay, so just get ready. But I am here to introduce my guest speaker. Are you ready? Are you ready out there? Hands up. Yep, you're ready. Okay, I feel you. I see you. I see you. Great. Honestly, this is an amazing guest speaker. He's been with my students before, actually in person for like a year now. Randy Ginsburg is with me. He is the founder of Kanso, a community center brand that designs and produces phone-free social experiences, everyday goods, and thoughtful brand partnerships that help people reclaim their attention, deepen their relationships, and build healthier tech habits. He previously founded and still operates Third Wall, a B2B marketing agency. Much of his passion sits at the intersection of presence, community, and the modern attention economy. Hey, Randy, welcome in. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Professor P. Hell of an intro.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Man, I love you so much. You're so great. Listen, you guys, a backstory. Randy and I met here in San Diego. He popped up on my LinkedIn and I saw him there. He said, I'm new to the area. I'm like, well, I'm new to the area. And he just seemed kind of cool. And I was like, hey, would you like to meet in person? And he's an in-person person. And thank God, because we live in such a virtual world. So we met, we chatted it up for 2 hours over in Del Mar. And I was like, man, I got to bring you to my students. And he has been so gracious to come for 2 semesters now, full year. And it's been amazing each time. The students have loved him. And I was like, no better way to close out the spring semester than with this phenomenal guest speaker who's from New York, mind you. I love the East Coast, by the way, because you know I'm Floridian. So big up for the Big Apple. Anyways, listen, Randy, tell us a little bit about your companies, your background, your story. Start anywhere you want and we'll weave through.
Yeah, for sure. So, and it's crazy that it's been a year since we
It's
first met.
crazy.
Time flies. But yeah, so as you mentioned, I run two businesses. I'll start with Third Wall since that is the one that I've been operating the longest. But Third Wall, as you mentioned, is a copywriting, content marketing agency working with primarily venture-backed B2B software companies. So we help them on the strategy, the execution, the distribution of all of their go-to-market content. So any content across site, social, email that's used to help drive new business, nurture customers, make customers return. That's all under us. That originally was actually derived from me starting as a freelance writer and my love for writing. So when I wanted to start my own thing, writing was definitely my most monetizable skill, especially in a pre-ChatGPT world. And so I started freelancing, and the freelancing went well, and it naturally, transformed into Third Wall, which is now the agency that it is today. We've been around 4.5 years, have a whole team, and have worked with a bunch of really awesome clients across the globe. That actually dovetailed very nicely into Kanso, which is the more recent business, which, as you mentioned, we create phone-free social experiences. That's really the core of what we do. We get people together to be completely present and undistracted with each other for probably the first time in a very long time. And we've had so many, just incredible things, relationships, serendipitous interactions come as a result of doing just that. And so that was born out of actually the pain points that I was feeling running Third Wall, where I was spending the entirety of my day online on social media, thinking about how we monetize people's attention. And naturally, even just in my own relationship with tech, wasn't where I wanted to be, and had this itch kind of in the back of my head. What would happen if you put a bunch of really ambitious, driven New Yorkers in a room together and took away the phones? And turns out, like I said, a lot of really great things have come as a result of that. And so now we operate in a handful of cities. We create physical products as well to help you, build a healthier relationship with tech and make sure that you're really investing in your relationships, and have just really been riding the tailwinds of everything that's kind of unfolded in the last couple of years. And so that's a business that I'm super passionate about. And despite it being a little bit more fresh, a little bit more of a startup, we're seeing some really cool growth. So it's been awesome to see.
That is amazing. That is really, really cool. I swear you have the Midas touch, the golden touch. Like anything you put your hands on grows and magnifies. And because I know your story a little bit from sharing, I'm going to roll your tape back to kind of like how you started with your entrepreneurial spirit. Can you take us back to where that little birth happened for you?
Yeah, for sure. So if you'd asked me what I wanted to do when I was probably, 9 or 10, I would have told you to be a sports journalist because I love sports and I loved writing, which is cool to see how the writing has, played a role down the line. But around, 15, if you had asked me that, I would say I want to be a CEO or a founder. And people would be like, oh, of what company? I'd say, I don't know, but I want to be a CEO. And that was actually born out of my experiences buying and selling shoes as a high schooler. So now a lot of that takes place on Instagram, and there's a whole secondary market around sneaker selling, and it's almost gotten too saturated and starting to decline. But at one point, it was far less saturated, and it took place primarily on Facebook and in person, and buying and selling, whether it was new sneakers to resell or existing used sneakers and cleaning them up and reselling them. And as a sneakerhead, that was just a path of interest that I fell into quite naturally. And I wanted to, have the opportunity to wear the cool Jordans to school, and my parents weren't going to pay for them for me. So I had to figure out a way to go and do that. And instead of, working a minimum wage job at the ice cream parlor in my town, I figured I'd try my hand at buying and selling sneakers. So I started with $200 that I saved up and bought one pair. It took me a very long time to flip that pair for maybe $20 profit, but at least I recouped my capital. And with that, bought two more pairs and traded and flipped and flipped and flipped until the point where I was able to buy, people's collections at once. And like anything, when you buy things in bulk, you get them for a little bit cheaper. And once I started to do that, there was more margin there, and I just continued to flip and flip that. And so as a high schooler, I was making solid pocket money, definitely had a real business, and that just kind of got me hooked on the entrepreneurial bug. And from there, led to a bunch of other different types of little side hustles or projects that ultimately culminated to where I am now.
That is so cool. It's so cool because I think I tell my students all the time, like, what did you play when you were little? What did you like when you were little? Because it gets trapped in there. And it seemed like you kind of knew, and you were able to have some liberty to kind of run a little bit with it. It was interesting when I told my students that, because I tell them that in my entrepreneurship class. And one of my students, she said, I have to tell you something. They write these things to me. She was like, when you said, what did we play when we were little? I had to go tell my mom because I used to play with my dolls. But what it was I had a dollhouse and I used to do the interior, and it was all about the furniture. It was my dolls, but it was making the interior. And what I do today, what I want to do is interior design. I was like, bingo, there it is.
Yep.
The Matrix has a quick way of stealing all that from you and then trying to plug you in to take your value, right? And say, this is where you have value at, but you really actually have it outside the Matrix. You thrive greater, you have energy is higher. And so I love that that has happened for you. And you went on and you went to college and you wrote a book. And that's kind of where I want to come. I want to turn the corner to the book because what you found in your research is really significant. Can you talk about the book that you wrote and your time writing it and how that transpired and the information you found as it correlates to entrepreneurship and
Yeah,
entrepreneurs?
definitely. So the book was derived from my own personal experience. So growing up in middle school and whatnot, I was very small and scrawny and not the most, I guess, aesthetically pleasing child, for lack of a better word. And as a result of that, faced some childhood bullying. And I think bullying has an impact on everyone. But at the time, for a bit, it was fairly traumatic. But it also, led me to some really awesome things. And that was kind of what the premise of the book was, studying people's relationship with childhood bullying, people who were bullied, and how their experiences led them to go and become entrepreneurs and find entrepreneurial success. And that was the catalyst in my own experience, where once I did find some success in the sneaker thing and was really able to throw myself into that, that was something that allowed me to go and build the confidence to tackle, some of these other areas in my life. And so I had felt that. I kind of sense of post-traumatic growth. I didn't know that that was the term at the time, but I had felt that experience and was searching if this was a common phenomenon, if there was any type of book or literature that kind of described this, and I didn't find one. So I decided to go and create it myself, I guess, in true entrepreneurial fashion. But essentially, in the book, went and interviewed a bunch of founders, executives, creatives who were bullied as children, and studied how this impacted their entrepreneurial trajectories. And so pulled from a mix of some already existing empirical studies, just broader about bullying, not necessarily related to entrepreneurship. Interviewed a bunch of these people for their firsthand takes, and there's also plenty of these secondary stories with very large entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and Tom Ford and some of these huge household names who are also bullied, and was able to pull together this really interesting correlation between people who are able to use the bullying as fuel for turning it into real entrepreneurial success. And the big kind of cornerstone piece of research that the book was built around actually came from a professor at Syracuse University, which is where I went to school. And this is a study of 1,000 plus people, ages 18 to 65, from all different ages, backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. So not only limited to entrepreneurs, but what she found was that rather than bullying being this, conventionally negative, traumatic thing that most people, I think, would associate with, there's actually, 50% of the people in the study said that they experienced some element of post-traumatic growth. They viewed the bullying as actually having a positive impact on their lives. And so the way that this developed was in areas like increased sense of independence or sense of resilience, moral development, so empathy, wanting to treat others the way that they have been treated, goal attainment, having the chip on your shoulder to go improve yourself, all of these different types of qualities that naturally map very well to entrepreneurship, whether that's resilience and being told no, whether that's needing to have, a high degree of emotional intelligence or empathy as far as dealing with people. Of course, the ability to just continue to push yourself forward in the face of adversity. All of these things that these people, again, anyone from the folks that I interviewed to these massive, massive household names had experienced, they said played a really important role in where they ended up. And so that was a really impactful project for me. That was also kind of my first big writing project that led to me, learning kind of the ins and outs of press and digital content and marketing to go and promote the book. And again, when you connect those dots backwards, which I'm sure we'll talk about, it all culminated to both Third Wall and what I'm doing with Kanso now.
Yeah, I think it's something we don't talk about enough, how, there is a good side to it. You can make all the bad turn to good somehow, right? I always say that with my life story because I share it very openly and very publicly, and it takes a lot of courage and bravery to do so. And being vulnerable is not for the faint of hearts, for sure. But I get so much in return, and I know it is why I am the beast that I mean, I am a beast. I
Totally.
was reflecting about Professor P and how she's got all this. It's her podcast. I've got almost 4,000 downloads now. This show is wild over here. I hit like 3,000 not too long ago, and all of a sudden I'm at like 35 or 36. I was like, this thing is really it's catching
Mhm.
that fire, and I love that. But Natasha Palumbo is a beast. Right,
You
like
are.
I mean, Professor Palumbo is just one entity, one brand, but there's a whole other beast behind it. And I do attribute it to the hard knocks of life that didn't take me down, and that I
Mhm.
was able to overcome and build. I'm a builder, right? I've been building my life, and it's why I cannot get to enough of, displaced populations that have some of my backing and are similar stories to tell them, hey, listen, you street entrepreneur, let's go figure that out and make it, let's go make it legit so you don't, lose your money anymore. And let's go put those talents to work and let me get in that psyche for a minute and let me show you who, so resilient, so strong. There's so much there, so much value. And so I really always loved that part about because I thought it was so fascinating. Plus, I'm a researcher, I'm really a mentalist. I love knowledge. I was telling somebody that the other day because I like got a question, right? And they're like, yeah, but it's you. And I'm like, yeah, I just love knowledge though, right? Um, but I think it's interesting and I just encourage my listeners out there, like if you come, if you listen to my show, I know many of you come because you love that empowerment, you love that piece to kind of get you bumped up, but there's facts behind this shit.
Totally.
There's some
And
studies behind this, right?
with business too, I think, you build confidence by doing hard things. And so it very much so translates to that as well.
It does. And because this is not for the faint of hearts, okay? I want you to know that this rodeo is not for the faint of hearts. And it doesn't matter what age bracket you are, where you're at it. It doesn't, you can enter in at any phase, right? Are you going to work? Are you going to
Hmm.
put the work in? Right. I heard something about Mr. Beast the other day, and he was like, I could tell any YouTuber what I've done. Like, I'm not going to hide what I've done, but they'll make their first million and then they'll lax, right? They'll make their first, right? And I bring another guest speaker. His name is Henry, and he talks about, he was like, don't set your standard at 1 million because that's not what's going to even make money. Set it at 10 million, set it higher, push yourself higher, go for the ambition, keep, pushing because when you chop all that down with the expenses and all the stuff and all the people, that million is not, it's going to be maybe 100,000.
Yeah.
And it's a good point because people want to glamorize this entrepreneurship and it's tough work, but it is so rewarding, right? And in your journeys, I know that you have something, we'll talk about the connect the dots back in a minute, but I want to talk about your experimental budget that you have and how this has kind of helped and shaped because even myself, I'm like, damn, I want to do more of that. I want to do
Yeah.
more of what Randy's doing. And my students really, that was one, if you saw in the notes, as I gave you their notes back, that was one of the highlights was like, man, yeah. And I told them one of the last things I said, go fucking live, go
Yeah.
live, go travel, go explore, go have those experiences. So talk to me a little bit of that and how it's kind of shapes your entrepreneurial journey and kind of the roundedness.
Yeah, I think it also kind of dovetails backwards to what we were talking about with exploring what you were really fascinated by as a child. Because as a child, naturally, you have more free time. And at least in my own experience, I was a only child. Both my parents worked in Manhattan, so after school, I was alone for, call it 4, 5, 6 hours a day, left to my own devices. And in that case, it was the internet. And so I spent a lot of time poking around on the internet, playing around with computers, learning about how software worked, just anything that I could go and get my hands on. And naturally, that curiosity, and even just spending time on Facebook, scrolling through the sneaker groups, naturally, that curiosity led to something that was more impactful. And I found in my own life that every big inflection point that I've had, whether that's a personal development inflection point or my career and business, was preceded by, call it 6 to 12 months of deep curiosity on a topic where I was just going deep for the love of the game, not because I thought that there was a way to necessarily make money in there, but because I had an itch in the back of my head that I couldn't scratch, and I needed to scratch it by learning, similar to what we were talking about, just being very deeply curious. And so I think in this case, knowing that that has always been a catalyst for success, sometimes it's easy to get so in the thick of things and have so much on your plate to do that you naturally leave that to the side. You don't necessarily put as much time as you did when you previously had free time. Whereas now I carve out something called the experimentation budget, making sure that I have both time and money to devote to parts of my life where I want to experiment and follow my curiosity just for the sake of it, knowing that maybe the time may be wasted or the money may be wasted in the traditional sense where it might not necessarily pan out into a financial ROI, but what I'll learn about myself or about the thing that I'm learning is is, inherently valuable. And I think that that has taken many shapes and different forms depending on the years of my life. But in sometimes that has been experimentation with a new business idea. Sometimes that has been, learning a language because I really wanted to learn a language. That's been traveling because I've wanted to see different perspectives. That's been trying to learn a new skill, whether it was drawing or something art related where I don't have a single artistic bone in my body. But constantly at the beginning of the year, setting aside some amount of money and time to go and dedicate towards that. Naturally, I know we'll just continue to deliver a really clear-cut ROI, even though when you connect the dots backwards, even if it's hard to see in the moment.
Yes, it really is something I think about. And no matter where people are, they can still create some type of budget, whether small or large, to do something different. Go, even if they just drive a different pathway one day,
Yeah.
and go take and see and stand in view. Like I think we can get caught up in, well, I just don't have money, Professor P. Like I
And
don't.
that's the thing. If you have time, we have access to the world's information at our fingertips now with YouTube and with large language models. There's never been an easier time to learn something if you devote yourself, the time in order to do so. And so, if you don't have enough money to put that towards an experimentation budget, at least you could have some time. And I think even an hour a day working at something will definitely compound if you stay consistent with it.
Yes, and the compounding is so important. Trying to teach young people the importance of compounding is like herding cats sometimes a little bit, but some of them get it, and some of them are like, "Okay, I got to hold this and wait, yeah, and
Yeah.
let it keep compounding." Compounding is really important to everyone, and building your experiences and letting them compound, just starting small. You don't have, it's the same thing I say with pay yourself first. It's a behavior. Even if you can only put 1% of your money away, you can do that because you're spending 12% on Starbucks,
Yeah.
50%. I mean, if you really go back, that's why I have all my personal finance students track their money so they can see we don't have an income problem. We have a spending problem. We're
Yeah.
consumers. We're built in the consumer model. It's in our psyche. It's all over advertisements and things like that. Okay, so let's talk about this connect the dots backwards. And I think I might want to have them do this as part of some of the homework. So Professor P gives homework, okay. But I think, one of the things you guys can do is set an experimental budget, okay? You guys think about what you can do to experiment once a month, once every couple of months, whatever. Just pick something and try, right? No matter if it's a small budget, big budget, if you got it, go for it. If not, pick a class, start a class. There's lots of free online workshops, things like that. So that's part one. But let's think about this. Tell them about, what it means to connect the dots backwards, and how that, plays into kind of our life in a way.
Yeah, I think connect the dots backwards is in a sense what it sounds like. It's that we have all of these really isolated events that happen in our lives, isolated experiences that in the moment might seem fairly trivial, but then when you look at your life as this, really broad, I guess, tapestry of experiences and where you end up, there's a lot of dot connecting that happens between experiences, between relationships, between skills, where again, something that in the interior design example that you gave, something that you've done as a child that you were doing simply because it was fun, but naturally built up some type of skill set or some knowledge about, or just a general enjoyment about, may end up being the career that you decide to pursue or the first internship that you decide to get. And those two things might seem entirely different. And because we're consuming so much information and so many experiences on a daily basis, you might not even realize that that's where that actually derived from. Or a specific I'll give an example in my own life where when I moved from my first corporate job, Macy's, to a startup, Bombas, I was originally connected with a recruiter who was a triplet of a coworker at Macy's. That coworker at Macy's was also a classmate at Syracuse University. And had I not decided to go to Syracuse, or had I not decided to, enter the major that I'd entered, where I had met this girl, or decided not to be the social of my fraternity, which is how we initially got introduced, then I would not have likely led up to the Bombas job. He played a pretty pivotal role in helping me land that job. And there are all of these, really small decisions that you make on a day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year basis that again seem completely trivial, but you never know how they're going to unfold once you end up where you're in a certain spot. And so I think, there is an element of trusting the process, whether that's in business, whether that's in personal life, knowing that things unfold as they do, and all of these small micro decisions will end up compounding into something that's really great.
Yes, and I love that. And as you were talking about it this time, I was thinking about as we move forward, we're collecting dots,
Right.
right?
If I didn't post on LinkedIn, you wouldn't have seen me. I wouldn't be on this podcast, right?
It's right.
That's a
It's wild.
uh,
And not just that, but the ripple effect that comes from that, especially because, we're connected to other people, right? So my students have been able to connect with you. They've been able to come and experience Kanso, for example, right? And we were just talking before, right, about how they're coming there. I mean, even that, right? That's such a beautiful thing, that impact and that ripple effect is really, really beautiful. Because earlier today I was like, I just love humans.
yeah.
I just love people, and I adore my students, and I just really love humanity, and I just want to serve them, and I just want to bring us together. I just want to empower us and let us know how amazing we are and what power we actually have. But it gets hard. This life is hard.
Totally.
You
I was gonna
know?
say, I think it naturally compounds higher when you're someone who is charismatic or outgoing or puts yourself out there. And at first, I was going to say, I think the feedback loop is a lot quicker for entrepreneurs just because you're constantly meeting so many new people on a daily basis. Whereas sometimes it can be constrained if you're in more of a corporate job because you're constantly around the same group
Yeah.
of people. But then I was thinking, I think it was less about, the proximity to people, although that plays a role. Whereas you could still be a very outgoing, charismatic W-2 employee and talk to people on the street
Yep.
or see people out in your daily
Yep.
life and create that kind of same amount of serendipity or luck, for example, that you can go and create as a founder. I think naturally it just happens slightly more and slightly more organically as entrepreneurs because you're just crossing paths with so many people on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think it can be both ways, but as entrepreneurs, it's kind of like what we thrive off of to build our businesses, to build our companies, to build ourselves and our brands. And so it's a big piece. It's a piece that we have to have versus, in other worlds, right? They don't necessarily have to have it, but many of them do. And it's the experience of life, right? Like, just truly enjoying learning about others. I really love learning about different people and meeting them and, things like that. And again, just being able to because I'm a, founder and entrepreneurship is my world. Obviously, I thrive right there a lot, but I just love hearing people's stories, right? And
Mhm.
encouraging them and, encouraging them to share their stories and things like that, because it's how we grow together and we're in this thing together, right? This life together. And so, I encourage my listeners too, everyone. I want you to think about your dots. And if you can set and think about connecting your dots backwards, how did you get to where you are now? Were you a dot for somebody, right? What does it mean to be a little dot on this dot planet of ours in this universe? Because it all boils down to the dot, right?
Yeah.
My students, I teach them quantum and metaphysics. It's one of their favorite, right? And I start with a quarter and we draw the quarter and then I make them put a dot. And it was funny going through their notebooks. What a wild ride that was, like going through all their notebooks. But here's all these circles with the dot in it, right? And then I could see them writing yours, connect the dot backwards. And it was just this aha moment, right? Where there is this alignment and I love how it all is coming together. Let's talk about this before we get wrapped up. Let's talk about AI. Let's talk about our phones, technology, why, it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, I use it. It's definitely changed writing. As an author, I'm not going to write my books with it or anything like that. But I mean, I have used Grammarly to clean up my stuff. My editor even used Grammarly in the beginning to clean up. So, but let's talk about it. What do you think? What's your thoughts? AI from the writing perspective, technology from our phone perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can go and probably do a whole entirely other podcast based on this, but I think in writing in particular, it's obviously completely changed the landscape of how we write, how writing is perceived, how writing sounds. I think, unfortunately for writing, it's done, in my opinion, more bad than good. In the case that, yes, now everyone, especially if you don't speak the English language, can get into, some type of parody, some type of great average as a writer. And I do think, like any AI tool, if you are inherently a great writer, you will be able to use it as a, superpower and naturally will help elevate your writing. At the same time, I do think that, like most things with AI, what it's done is eliminated friction out of the writing process. And sometimes with anything in life, that friction in being able to break through that and run up against it and iterate on it is, part of what really makes great writing great.
Yeah.
And because of that, because of the kind of instant gratification, the ability to generate, really clean prose very quickly and even edit it with simply a sentence, it sometimes can, detract from that writing process. And even for writers like myself, I need to catch myself from, over indexing into using it as a tool versus outsourcing, my critical thought to it. And I think that that's a broader piece of just where the world's headed in general as far as AI. You have a lot of people that are becoming so reliant on AI as a search engine, as a source of information, as a emotional companion that they are losing their ability to critically think. And that's something that, highly, highly worries me. From a more business perspective, I think the perceived value of written content has significantly decreased because it's so
Yep.
easy to replicate. The barrier to entry to recreate it, and recreate it at scale, at speed, is, far higher, or the barrier to entry is far lower than what it used to be. And so naturally, the value of really high quality writing has detracted. And you're also seeing a lot of writing on the internet sound the same, with the same sentence
Yeah.
structures, the same punctuation. And on one hand, that does, consolidate this tone of the internet, this writing style that it seems like everyone, even people who used to be good writers now, embodies. On the other hand, it does allow for, really high quality human work to shine out and get its recognition. As that dovetails to the phone piece, I think there's, more information out there than ever. AI will continue to create more content than ever. It's never been harder to protect our attention, our critical thought, naturally, as these platforms that are designed to exploit our attention and the content that is going to get continuously more addictive and plentiful. We need to do a better job of making sure that we're carving out enough time in our days devoted to the things that really matter, and that the same
Yeah.
way that we treat our relationship with physical health or nutrition or
Yes.
sleep, we need to treat our health with, our relationship with technology. And so a lot of the work that we're now doing on the Kanso side, of course, it's the experiences, but those really serve as like the first kick in the ass for people to wake them up into, building a better relationship with tech. And I think as the company continues to evolve, I personally want to do a lot more work on the, intensive sustainable systems side to make sure that people aren't just going to our events for 3 hours and putting away their phones and leaving feeling a little bit lighter and then falling right back into the same habits, but we're actually helping them, build out the proper systems in this area of their lives. And I think that that is an industry that is only going to continue to increase as
Yes.
AI and hardware and everything else continue to advance.
Yes, 1000%. I totally 1000% agree that that is going to be, we're going to just need it. It's because it's already overstimulating us. It's been overstimulating us for some time, but now it is like throttled in, like
And
we
it's the
are,
worst it'll ever be. That's the
oh,
scary part. It's only going to continue to get better, and it's only going to continue to get better faster. And I think even with the,
yeah,
same way that it eliminates friction on the writing side, when you're building a relationship, whether you know it or not,
yeah,
with the AI
yeah,
companions or large language models, naturally you are taking time away from your human relationships, and it's very easy to gravitate
yeah,
towards a frictionless relationship that will continuously confirm your beliefs and will always be there to answer you and will tell you that everything is okay or that your thought systems are correct. And it's very easy to, naturally gravitate towards that simply out of the need for human connection and belonging, which is something that's, primarily wired into us. And so I think you will start to see again more people gravitate towards these artificial relationships instead of the ones that are
yeah.
truly valuable. And those skills that are required to build and maintain these really messy human relationships might start to atrophy. And so, part of what we want to do with our events is not only create the spaces to allow you to collectively unplug, but also make sure that you're, doing it in a way where you're walking away with a bunch of really high quality people that you can continue to hang out with and hopefully
Yeah.
do really cool things with in real life.
And that's so, so important. But friction is not a bad thing, right?
No, it's great.
Conflict is not a bad thing. Being bored is not a bad thing, right? Those are actually all good things. The watermelon seed is not a bad thing. Listen, but it has annoyed human beings. All these things have annoyed. And so then you take the seed away. First of all, something without a seed is not real. I don't care. You made that shit up. Okay. I can't even stand it right now, but that's not even real. It's crazy what has happened to the seed. The seed is so important. But it's like, that's the whole thing. Even if we go back and we connect our dots here on this, podcast, the dots connect in bullying. Was it so bad? Yeah, I mean, there are some extremes. Yes, I get that. But tough times, can make tough people who become strong people. It is
Mhm.
really up to the individual, and it's really kind of up to what that inner strength is within them and what is around them, right? Show me your friends, I'll show you your future kind of
Yeah.
deal, right? You got to be able to know that a rocket has a certain elevation and a point, it has to release the boosters, which are just gassy ass people. I tell my students all the time, like, let go of these people, let go of them, or you're going to implode, right? And go ahead and soar, but nothing without, some, and this is the whole thing. If you even you would go back to your health and weightlifting and working out, that's hard stuff,
Totally. And
like,
people need education, accountability, and support to go put those practices into their lives, I think, in the very much so
yeah.
same way that they do with this. And right now, there's not a lot of that, infrastructure, products, services, whatever you want to call it, available for people. So hopefully we go and fill that gap.
And that ties me into this kind of one of the last questions I want to ask you before some final words of wisdom to my listeners. But what does, say, the next 5 years look like for you with Kanso? And let's talk about just Kanso for
Yeah.
right now, because it's really on the rise. And you've grown. You guys, listen, when I talk about the Midas touch, I am so serious. This guy, this even our LinkedIn post went bananas. I
Yeah.
said, look at the impressions. And I was trying to teach my students, just to have a squirrel moment, how important impressions are and how LinkedIn can really give you a lot of impressions. And the
Yeah.
key with entrepreneurship is, how do I move impressions to likes, from likes to subscribes, payers, buyers,
Yeah.
clients. All of that is the math of entrepreneurship. That's the mystery. That's the grind of it right there. But again, wild ride with you and how growth happens. So what are you foreseeing? What are you thinking? What's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much opportunity in some cases that it's slightly overwhelming where we want to do so much and you can do everything at once, or sorry, you can do everything, but not at once. And so a lot of work on mine has been figuring out, which avenues we should take right now, where that looks like to date is, continuing to really go deep on the experiences, both on the small local level and then both on the, national level as well. So a lot of our current experiences are fairly small, they're fairly intimate, but there's an constantly increasing demand for some of these larger phone-free experiences, music festivals, conferences, et cetera. And so some of the infrastructure with the lockers and whatnot that works on the smaller scale doesn't necessarily work on the larger scale. And so making sure that we have the right pouches, the right infrastructure to be able to meet that demand, that has been continuously increasing is really important. And then really, and come the big vision is to, like I said, with physical health and nutrition, where there's this ecosystem of education, accountability, and support. And it's incredibly nuanced to who you are as a person. And depending on what you have going on in your life, sometimes it takes a priority, sometimes it takes a back seat. That's really what we're trying to build with Kanso, where we have this offering of different experiences, products, educational resources to help you in whichever stage you are, help you build, healthier tech habits for you and whatever health looks like for you in that regard. And also make sure that you're, connecting with people on a deeper level. Our whole thesis is that the best way to spend less time on your devices is just to design a life that's so rich with experience,
Yeah.
purpose, novelty, that the idea of scrolling in isolation isn't nearly as exciting. And we think people are at the core of all of that. And so right now we have the experiences, we have the journals, we have the pouches, we have, a handful of other educational free resources that are actually being used in universities across the country, which is really cool. And just continuing to, build this flywheel with content at the forefront so that, you find us in that wherever you are, whether you need just a night out or you need a 6 week intensive session or you want a journal,
Yeah.
there's something for you there. And so, it's slowly starting to spin, which is excited to see and just continuing to build on that momentum.
I love that so much. And I honestly, we're just going to need more human interaction. We're going to see a great divide. It's already happening, but you know, it's so many humans are going to go to the wayside, unfortunately. They've already started that abyss, but there'll be more. But we will need each other and we'll need that human connection even more in those experiences. So I really appreciate that you have going. And I mean, I see it going grand. I can see corporations just gobbling it up, honestly,
Yeah.
because they're so overstimulated, right? But colleges, which I could, I know you had started to do, but even the students, like, I love when my students will be like, I didn't use any AI because now I have this, just, disclosure that they have to do. And you can see the difference. I will tell you the
Yeah.
writing is, you can see the difference. And I love when they say, I don't even have social media. It's just too distracting. I could see how it was, I love that consciousness about them. I'm not there yet personally myself, but I'm not a what do you call a doom scroller? So
Yeah.
what do the kids call it? Anyways, not be trying to be old over here at 52, but okay. So just some last words of wisdom for anybody like interested in entrepreneurship or just this crazy life, like to build it up, to be empowered. What kind of advice would you have for somebody maybe as a budding entrepreneur, as a young person, older person, anything you want to share that you think might be beneficial to them as we wrap up here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a culmination, aggregation of everything that we talked about, but allow yourself to be bored and just stay curious. And I think by being curious, by carving out, time, money, whatever it may be for experimentation, and then also, making sure that you have a controlled relationship with your devices and that the free time, the limited free time that you do have isn't being spent, consuming mindless content that will not allow you to move yourself forward. If you're able to take the time that you're currently spending doing that or that you're spending on your phone and reinvest it into simply just exploring, it's really hard to not fall into some element of progress or some element of momentum that will naturally get you where you want to go. And I think, boredom is downstream or discovery is downstream of boredom, and curiosity is downstream of discovery, and ultimately figuring out, what you want to pursue as a result of compounding skills and compounding time and compounding relationships and figuring out what you're good at, what the world values, what you can bring to the world. And I think all of that happens with just really focused, undistracted time on whatever that thing is that you want to pursue. And so that would be my parting words.
I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being my guest speaker for the final spring semester. You guys make sure to connect with Randy. All of his information is going to be in the transcripts. But Randy, tell them real quick how they can find you, where they can find you at.
Yeah, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. Me personally, I'm most responsive there. And then if you're interested in what we're doing with Kanso, you can find us on Instagram or TikTok at Unplug with Kanso, Kanso.
And check one of his events out because he's all over the place. You got him here, you got him in New York, you got him kind of popping up. They'll continue to pop up. So make sure you guys go show him some support, some love, some connect with him. Definitely reach out. He's always open to talk with people. Like you can say, Professor B sent me. And you guys listen, enjoy your summer. I'm going to take some time off and I'd love to hear from you. So, I always appreciate what you have to tell me. I want to know, what would you like to hear in the new semester coming in the fall? What type of topics? What's a hot topic you want me to talk about? What kind of empowerment do you need? Do you want some more metaphysics and quantum physics? You're going to get this elixir for sure, that energetic power. I'm going to bring it to you as much as I can and drop these entrepreneurial tips. And I'll be back with another guest speaker in the fall. Thank you all so much. Make sure to do your homework. That is to get your experimental budget, no matter how big, no matter how small. Get it started and think about those dots, the dots connecting backwards and the current ones coming, how it all ties together. Randy, thank you so much for being my guest today. I truly appreciate you serving my students, investing in them. And I will look forward to seeing you again in the fall as you come
Yep.
serve us once again and empower us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure chatting.
Yes, it has been so much fun today. You guys, I'll see you in the fall. Professor P is out. Be encouraged, be empowered. And as always, be well, everyone. Be well. Thanks, everyone, for listening today. I hope you received a lot out of that episode and are feeling energized, and ready for whatever lies ahead. If you did enjoy it, I'd appreciate it if you'd share it out. Thank you in advance for doing so. Please also connect with me on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Natasha M. Palumbo. And until next time, be encouraged, be empowered, and as always, be well.